and welcome to Book Beat. Today we will be learning about the Minnesota State Services for the Blind. Our first guest today is Stuart Holland, manager of the audio.
I'm manager of the Minnesota Radio Talking Book Network.
Minnesota Radio Talking Book Network.
Part of State Services for the Blind.
So how did you become involved in the Minnesota State Services for the Blind?
That's actually a very interesting story. I started work with the State Services for the Blind because I was laid off from another aspect of the department. And our HR department was very, very good about saying, if you have a background in theater, which I do, then you would qualify to become employed by State Services for the Blind and the Radio Talking Book Network. And so I applied and passed the oral reading test that they were offering and became a broadcaster, then moved up from that to the program coordinator and became the manager in 2000.
That is very interesting. What about the history of the State Services for the Blind?
State Services for the Blind began in the 1920s. The radio talking book did not actually start until 1969. The radio talking book is on a side channel of Minnesota Public Radio, and it is the fact that we use an FM signal that allows a side channel to exist. Most people don't know what a side channel is. They have no idea that they exist. But in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, we were using AM only for radio. FM actually was developed in the 1940s, but did not become financially and commercially feasible until the 1960s. So in 1965, when Bill Kling graduated from St. John's University in Collegeville, he was active in the college radio station, which was an FM station. Mm-hmm. He went away to grad school in 1965, came back in 1967 to run the radio station. He took it out of St. John's to become independent, and it was Minnesota Educational Radio. It became Minnesota Public Radio. And in 1967, he was thinking, this is an FM station, it's a public station, I'm not allowed to sell advertising, how do I keep the money coming in? Mm-hmm. Perhaps I can use a side channel and rent that out. And perhaps State Services for the Blind would like to have use of that side channel. A side channel can most often be thought of as the shoulders on a freeway. Mm-hmm. The main two lanes on a freeway would be your left and right-hand speakers of your radio. Mm-hmm. And the side channels, or the shoulders of the freeway, are going the same direction as the freeway, but they aren't going to be as smooth of a ride. Mm. And that's the side channel of radio stations in FM. So you have the police band, you have the Muzak, you have any private radio signals, minority language programming, and since 1969, we've had programming for the blind and visually impaired.
Excellent. So from 69 on, the programming was available for, how do the people get the signal?
In 1968, that was spent primarily in contracts and research. And what was being researched was how to make a radio that would just pick up the radio station that we were starting. So they developed, that was Bob Watson, who was our first engineer, who still is alive and living in Stillwater. They developed a radio that would just pick up our signal. And it was very simple to operate, just involved turning on a knob, which also controlled the volume. It didn't pick up anything else. And that way, people who are blind and need that radio for access to their newspapers, their current magazines, or current books, they have that way of doing it, just turning on the knob.
It sounds simple, but it sounds very apropos to the task that it has to fill.
Absolutely. Many people who become blind older in life, which is actually a majority of people with blindness, it's a traumatic situation at first. Mm-hmm. They have been used to seeing all of their lives, and it is possible with some forms of blindness that you can wake up the next morning and have no vision at all.
Oh my goodness.
And when that happens, it's rather traumatic. So to have something that's very simple to operate was the goal of Bob Watson, having just something that you could turn on and it was there.
That sounds like it is a great comfort and a great asset to the people that
Yes.
use it.
Right.
You mentioned people who become blind later in life. What is the clientele that you serve?
Well, we serve anybody who has a difficulty in reading the printed page through a physical reason. So it can be through problems with their eyes. It could also be dyslexia. It could be a brain trauma, and it could be the inability to turn a page. Somebody who is quadriplegic would qualify to receive the radio signal. And actually, we're trying to make more outreach to those people that are not blind but cannot read the printed page for any of those other physical reasons. They often will not come to State Services for the Blind because they're not blind. Mm-hmm. They think, why would I need to go to State Services for the Blind if I can see? But the fact is they can't read the printed page. So they qualify for our services. So your question again is, what is our clientele? It is everybody of any age who cannot read the printed page. Now, the vast majority of people that we serve are over 70.
I would have thought there would be more younger people, but that's very interesting.
The Braille department at State Services for the Blind serves primarily K through 12.
Okay.
Because it's very important for blind children to have access to their materials in Braille. And they serve about 150 people. Now, State Services for the Blind radio talking book serves, well, we don't have exact figures because there are some places where a radio is in a nursing home and will actually be serving 15 to 20 people. And there are homes where there is more than one blind person and they'll be serving a couple of blind people. So we figure somewhere between 10 and 15,000 people
Oh my goodness.
that we're serving in Minnesota with the radio talking book. So you compare 150 children to 15,000.
Oh, that's
Significant.
very significant.
Right.
And how do people avail themselves of the services? You mentioned the people that can't access the printed page and the blind. How do they become a part of this service?
They contact State Services for the Blind, any of our offices, anywhere in the state. And we have state offices everywhere. And they tell the personnel that they would like to apply for a radio. There is a form to fill out. It does need a signature of a professional, a medical professional, to verify that they cannot read the printed page. But it's a very simple process.
Excellent. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about the radio audio?
I didn't tell you about the books that we read.
Okay.
And since you are a book program, I think you might be interested in that.
Oh, definitely.
We broadcast an extremely wide range of books. Everything from very clean romances to fantasy and mysteries that have violence, and sometimes there's sex involved, and political books and controversial books and history and memoir, absolutely everything. Since we're on a side channel, we are actually exempt from the FCC regulations about sex, violence, and rough language. And we believe very strongly that people who cannot read the printed page have the same right to see what is on that page as anyone who has eyesight. So if you can read a book and it's got rough language and sex and violence in it, you can choose whether or not to read the book.
That's right.
And people who are blind should have that same option. We do not believe in editing.
Excellent. That's a really good thing to find out. Well, thank you so much for
You're very
taking
welcome.
the time to talk with us today.
It's a pleasure.
And we will take a break right now, and we'll be back to you shortly. I'm trying something new today. I've got my questions on my phone. Good afternoon, and welcome to BookBeat. Reading books is the key to an enlightened society. You want a key light back there, right?
Just gonna borrow this.
I think we're about ready, aren't we, Jesse? Good. BookBeat is a show about books and book readers.
A very odd combination of topics.
We interview book club members. How are your books chosen? And film their discussions.
Trying to find happiness and love in her life.
We also provide tips for forming book clubs
I think you just have to find a group of interested book readers.
and books that are current that might be enjoyable to read. In a society where everything is instantaneous, we're losing that sense of depth that reading can bring that other media doesn't. My name is Sue Ellen Zagrabelny. Well, I can't guarantee Oprah, but I can guarantee Channel 20. Look for BookBeat Sundays at 5 p.m., repeated Monday at 1 a.m. and 9 a.m. on Channel 20. See you then. Hello and welcome back to BookBeat. Today we have Bonnie Smith-Yackle, a volunteer at Minnesota State Services for the Blind. Bonnie, welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Tell me about your volunteer position here at the Minnesota State Services for the Blind.
I am a reader for Radio Talking Book. I actually do two types of reading. I read history or nonfiction, memoir, whatever. And I also work with another volunteer producing a radio program called For Addicts and Others.
Tell me about that show.
It's exactly what it says. It's a 41-minute program for addicts and others. It's information that is chosen by the other volunteer and myself, generally information put out by the AA or Al-Anon groups, but also any kind of newspaper, book information that the people at State Services for the Blind, Radio Talking Book, see as relevant or interesting to the readers or the listeners of the program.
Now, tell me a little bit more about the books that you read. You mentioned memoirs and history. Could you give me an example of what you've read lately?
Well, I've read a lot of different kinds of books. Stuart is wonderful at choosing books. I have to say that. He's great. And I've read some books that I thought were absolutely fantastic. One of them was called Citizens of London. It's a history of the three main American citizens that were living in London during World War II, Edward R. Murrow, Averell Harriman, and the ambassador at that time, and I forget his name. But anyway, that was one of the best books, history, I've read so far. I've also read a lot of scholarly books. One of them was called The Great Divide by Peter Watson, which was a very long, involved history of the development of civilization, both in the old world and in the new, contrasting the two.
Now, are these books done in segments, or are they read not sequentially, but serially?
Right. I read every week generally, and I read for an hour. And as long as that covers in the book, it's usually about 30 pages in all, and then it continues on, and each is a separate broadcast.
Oh, okay. Is there something you'd like to tell me about your volunteer job?
I love it. This is the most satisfying, the most interesting volunteer work I have ever done. I've done quite a bit of volunteer work since I've been retired, and I was looking for something else that that was a little bit more interesting. I was doing a lot of different things, and there are different reasons why I wasn't wanting to continue. One was I like to go to one place all the time, not to drive in a lot of different areas. And I was talking about this to my sister, who happens to live in Texas, and I said, I wish I had a volunteer job that I really, really liked. And I can't think of what I can look for right at this moment. And she said, have you ever thought of reading for the blind? She had a friend who read for the blind in Texas who had just visited her, so it was on her mind. And I said, that's a wonderful idea. And so I immediately got on my computer after hanging up and looked up Minnesota State Services and found out that I could send in an application, and I did that, and I was invited to come and do the reading to test for my appropriateness for the.
And how long have you been doing this?
A little over 4 years, I think, somewhere around there.
Oh my goodness, that's very good that you found something that fits so well for you.
I love it. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell us?
I just enjoy coming here. I enjoy the personnel, the people that work here. There's a wonderful atmosphere about the whole place. It is, I suppose what I think of it as is the people really are involved in service, and it makes a big difference. The atmosphere is a very friendly, warm atmosphere. I feel good every time I walk in the door, and I'm really glad I can do it.
So great to have you here today.
I'm pleased to be here, pleased to be able to tell you.
Thank you so much. You're welcome. And we will take a short break and be back with you shortly. Thank you and welcome back to BookBeat. We have Jack Rossmann, a volunteer for Radio Talking Book, is that correct?
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
And he's going to tell us some things about that service that the State Services for the Blind offers. Welcome. Thank you for coming. Tell me about your volunteer service. What do you do for the State Services for the Blind?
I have two main responsibilities. One is to put books on tape digitally for clients of the State Services for the Blind. And then about once a month, I, along with a staff member, spend 2 hours reading portions of the New York Sunday Times. That goes out live over the radio at that time.
Oh, very interesting. What kind of books do you read for the services?
Well, thanks to Stuart Holland's good suggestions, it's a wide variety of books. The two most recent books the one I'm currently reading and one I finished a few weeks ago, were both fiction and excellent books. I've really enjoyed both of them.
Oh, okay. How did you become a volunteer? Talk a little bit about the application process and how one becomes a volunteer for the Minnesota State Services for the Blind.
Well, I became interested in it. Sort of three things came together for me, I guess. I was beginning a phased retirement from a faculty position at McAllister College, so I was going to have a little more free time. Both my mother and my mother-in-law had developed macular degeneration, and my mother-in-law lived in Iowa. She'd been helped a great deal by the Iowa version of the Radio Talking Book. This was an important part of her life. And I had a good friend who had become a volunteer here at Radio Talking Book and spoke highly of the experience. So I decided to submit an application and was fortunate enough to then go through the testing process and emerged as somebody that was asked to become a volunteer reader.
Why don't you tell me some more about what you do as a volunteer? Do you do the radio broadcasts, or what you're doing is the digital?
Yeah, let me just give you kind of a typical month, I guess.
Okay, that would be really helpful.
So almost every Thursday morning I come in and for it typically takes me about an hour and a half to put 60 minutes of good good book time onto the digital system. So And obviously books vary in length. The book I finished recently, I think it was 23 or 24 hours of recording that
Oh my
I did for
goodness.
that book. The book I'm now reading is a little bit shorter than that, but at any rate, it can take a fairly lengthy period of time over a series of weeks. So that's sort of the radio talking book part of it. And then for the Sunday New York Times, typically I will come in at about 5:30 on a Sunday evening. The staff person will have put in front of me the news stories that we're going to read. I spend a little time going through those to find any names that might be tricky to try to get a handle on those. And then from 6 p.m. until 8 p.m., we are reading segments of the New York Times.
Interesting, and how fortunate for the listeners to be able to get that kind of information on an ongoing basis.
Well, it's just a wonderful experience. I think has perhaps been said earlier, this is just a friendly, warm, supportive atmosphere, and I look forward to coming here every week.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us today. We will take a short break and be back with you shortly. Welcome back to BookBeat. Our next guest is Lisa Largis, Outreach Coordinator for the Minnesota State Services for the Blind. Lisa, welcome.
Thank you so much.
You're going to talk about the senior services that the Minnesota State Services for the Blind offers. What can you tell me about that?
I just wanted folks to know, in addition to our communication center, which provides books for anyone, as Stuart said, who can't access the printed page for whatever reason, we also provide other services. We have a senior services unit here at State Services for the Blind. Anyone who is experiencing vision loss, lives in the state of Minnesota, such that it makes it difficult to perform, daily functions, that kind of thing, we will work with. We come out to your home, we meet with you, we assess what might be helpful for you. We can provide some devices, a little technology, and most of all, just some tips and guidance for how to accommodate your vision loss and how to use the vision that you still have remaining in a more productive way, and how to do some other things non-visually that you might not have thought about before. And if you're a customer of ours through the Senior Services Unit, you're also eligible to receive the radio talking book and also our other Braille and audio services. So it's a wonderful thing for folks to know about, both for folks who are seniors or if you have a family member who is losing vision, we're a resource for those folks.
Excellent. Talk a little bit more about the Communication Center.
Thanks. So we've heard a lot about the radio talking book, which is an amazing service here at State Services for the Blind. We have 3 other sections that are a part of our Communication Center, and they all also work with volunteers. Our engineering section repairs both the radios and also the digital book players that our customers use, and they also work a lot on our transmitters and various things. They're fantastic. If you have a talent for that kind of thing, we could use your help. Our Braille section, as Stuart mentioned, Braille's all the materials for all blind students in the K through 12 system in Minnesota. And we also Braille leisure books for Braille readers, and we Braille books that people may need for their work, and we Braille textbooks for college students. And we're always looking for volunteers there too. Folks who want to learn the Braille code can come and be transcribers with us. And then in addition to the radio talking book, we also have people reading books into digital audio format for college students and others who are looking for books in a digital format, audiobooks. So we have a lot going on in our communication center, and we have about 675 volunteers who are an amazing bunch of people.
That is fantastic. How about we take a little tour of the
Yeah.
Communications Center? Let's do that
That
next.
sounds like a great idea.
I'm trying something new today. I've got my questions on my phone. Good afternoon and welcome to BookBeat. Reading books is the key to an enlightened society. You want a key light back there, right?
Just gonna borrow this.
I think we're about ready, aren't we, Jesse? Good. BookBeat is a show about books and book readers.
A very odd combination of topics.
We interview book club members. How are your books chosen? And film their discussions.
Trying to find happiness and love in her life.
We also provide tips for forming book clubs
I think you just have to find a group of interested book readers.
and books that are current that might be enjoyable to read. In a society where everything is instantaneous, we're losing that sense of depth that reading can bring that other media doesn't. My name is Sue Ellen Zagrabelny. Well, I can't guarantee Oprah, but I can guarantee Channel 20. Look for BookBeat Sundays at 5 p.m., repeated Monday at 1 a.m. and 9 a.m. on Channel 20. See you then. Hello and welcome back to BookBeat. Today we will be interviewing Sharon Obrestad and taking a tour of the Braille section of the Minnesota State Services for the Blind. Welcome, Sharon. What would you like to show us?
Well, we will start by talking about Braille and the fact that Braille is made up of 6 dots. They all have numbers, 1, 2, 3 on the left, 4, 5, 6 on the right of the cell, and you can get 40 cells across a Braille page. I'm sure everybody's familiar with these little Braille cells you see on signs, and the dot 6 that you always see at the beginning means it's a capital letter.
Okay.
So you will see that, and then Braille can be uncontracted, meaning it's letter for letter. So if there's an S, there's a Braille S. But because Braille can get kind of clunky or cumbersome because it's only 40 cells on a page, there's what they call contractions. So you can shorten up things. So the word for, F-O-R, can show up as a complete Braille cell, dots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And sometimes you will see it connected to the word the. So the Braille cells for and the will be put together, saving space.
Ah,
So that's pretty cool.
that is cool.
And it makes it very workable for things. Do you want to see a Perkins?
Sure, let's see us Perkins.
Braille used to be done on a Perkins Braille writer for a long time. And this you can see, you've got the keys that do dot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can hold 1 down for dot 1. You can hold 1 and 4 down and make a C. And this is your space bar. Kind of works like a typewriter used to work. When you get to the end of the line, you get a little bell. Bring it back, crank it to the next line, on you go. It's really a very handy device. We still use it here to do tactiles, to do birthday cards or things.
Oh, so it's still in use even though it's low tech.
Right, right. And it was used for a really long time. It works great. The only problem is if you get down to the end of your page or you make a mistake, you pretty much have to start over because it doesn't erase.
And is there a way to make a notation that you made an error, or do you just have to start over?
You pretty much just have to start over.
Oh dear.
So that was like the biggest problem for transcriptionists. Now that we have computers, it works just like, it's just like working in Word or whatever. You can make a mistake and you can fix it before you have to go back to the embosser.
Okay.
So that's a very, very wonderful thing. And as Stuart mentioned, Braille, we can do Nemeth with those 6 dots, which is math Braille.
Okay.
We have 2 Nemeth transcribers here, so I think we should go see them.
Okay, after you.
Okay. Hi, Gail. Hi. Hi, Gail is one of our Nemeth transcribers. You do Nemeth, right?
Yes.
Okay. And Nemeth we use for math. Use it for computer and some science books that have lots of computations or equations, things like that, it'll show up there. It's the same 6 dots. It's just a different set of rules as to how you might use those if you have a plus sign, or if you have to split it between 2 lines, or if there's letters, you know, and numbers in Nemeth are dropped to the lower part of the cell, whereas numbers in literary, which is what you would see in your social studies book or your novel, they're in the upper part of the cell.
Thank you.
Val is our super incredible tactile artist here. Math things will have a lot of graphs and circle graphs and bar graphs and all that stuff. Science books, you'll see all your diagrams for the, you know, the digestive system, or you might have a frog belly or something. So those have to be done tactily. There is some decisions that have to be made as to how much you can show that would be useful for the reader. The person doing the tactile doesn't just reproduce the picture. Sometimes you have to do some kind of thinking and laying it out. So there are rules for making tactile graphics from NBA. Yeah, so those are some, and they're done usually on a white paper. In our office, we call them a master, and then they're thermoformed onto that plasticky yellowish paper. Those are some masters right there.
Oh.
And we keep those in the office so that when somebody requests a book, we just make copies of them.
Okay. And the copies are that kind of paper,
Right.
that kind of plastic.
Right.
Okay.
So that's one way to do them. And then down here is where our 2 proofreaders work. Judy, do you have anybody working with you right now?
I don't, but we can pretend. You can sit down.
I used to be a proofreader.
Yes.
And we proofread here. We proofread all math because there's no context to numbers. So if the student sees x plus 3 is 5, they don't know if we made a mistake with the 5 and meant to make 9. So all that is proofread. And we proofread everything else for K through, is it
12, pretty much.
pretty much?
Yeah.
It used to be 6 usually. We want to get the younger grades. We want to make sure theirs is absolutely perfect because they're learning to read, they're learning format.
Right.
So that is what we do. Some of the older kids, if it's a really, you know, so, and every once in a while we'll miss one, and sometimes it gets back to us. The kid found our error and they think, oh, they missed one.
Yes.
I would tend to tell
Over here is where our thermoform machines live. This one's missing right now. I think it's being fixed. So this is it. And I'm not going to make one because every time I do, I leave it on too long and then the place smells worse than burning popcorn. But basically we take our white master sheet that you saw she had, and that goes on first. This one goes on top, and then this gets pulled down and pushed back, and then there's a vacuum in here that just kind of sucks the image onto this paper. And then there's some trick to knowing when it's done. I think the light goes off, but I'm not sure. And thank you, Jim. Jim is our, he puts our books together. Okay, this is our library. Start with the embossers. These 2 here are our 2 interpoint embossers. They're hooked up to computers, so the disc or the thumb drive goes in, and there's a Braille 2000, which is a computer Braille translation program, is on there. So we can plug that in there, and we tell it to print just like you would, like you know, when you're printing from your computer onto regular paper, and it will emboss it. If it's interpoint, it will emboss both sides of the page for us, which is a really wonderful space saver, because a volume of Braille should be 70 pages. And if we do interpoint, we can do 120 pages.
Oh, so this condenses it? Is that it? Explain what interpoint is.
Interpoint is putting it on both sides. So it does the lines so that you know, the dots, the lines are kind of like this, offset. So you don't get the dots right on top of each other on both sides. It's harder for people who read Braille by sight because you've got the shadows from the dots on the other side showing up. Braille readers don't really find it, they don't have a preference. But younger kids, we always do single size. This is our Romeo. This is a really ancient one. However, it does print on this plastic, which is what we use for overlays. So sometimes a parent might send us a book that they want to read to their child, but they still want the pictures and the words. So we can do Braille on here, and then we can just put it right over the pages of the print book. We do that for birthday cards, different things like that. And then this is a tiger, and this makes some tactiles. Val uses this one. It works, it has a word program, and she puts in what she wants, and then it prints it out on this paper, and it's kind of a raised type tactile that you get.
How do you get permissions for using the books?
We can go talk to Vicky for that, because I'm
Okay.
not exactly sure how that all works. So we can go see her if you'd like. And these are all books that we have ordered and students have used and have sent back to us. Some of them you'll see have the real nice bindings on, just looking like they came from the publisher. And then ours, the ones we do in-house, we use the spiral bound with the blue cover. And we try to save the ones that we think we're gonna need to use again.
Okay. We have with us Vicky Roberts, who is
Braille Librarian.
Braille Librarian at the Minnesota State Services for the Blind. Vicky is going to tell us about how we get the permissions for using the books. What can you tell us about that? Do you have to go through the publisher to?
Yeah, there is a standard copyright permission so that we don't have, we're not, running into any problems with that.
Basically, you work through the publishers and get
Yes,
permissions to be
yes.
able to, and the permission is limited then to going to the visually impaired
Yes.
and blind.
yes.
So Stuart, what you had said about people meeting the criteria of not being able to access the printed page is the level of the permission that they have to use them.
Yes.
I'm trying something new today. I've got my questions on my phone. Good afternoon and welcome to Book Beat. Reading books is the key to an enlightened society. You want a key light back there, right?
I'm just gonna borrow this.
I think we're about ready, aren't we, Jesse? Good. Book Beat is a show about books and book readers.
A very odd combination of topics.
We interview book club members. How are your books chosen? And film their discussions.
Trying to find happiness and love in her life.
We also provide tips for forming book clubs
I think you just have to find a group of interested book readers.
and books that are current that might be enjoyable to read. In a society where everything is instantaneous, we're losing that sense of depth that reading can bring that other media doesn't. My name is Sue Ellen Zagrabelny. Well, I can't guarantee Oprah, but I can guarantee Channel 20. Look for Book Beat, Sundays at 5 p.m., repeated Monday at 1 a.m. and 9 a.m. on Channel 20. See you then.
Llewellyn,
Yes,
I have a request.
you do. What's that, Ashland?
Well, Taffy read a book to me that I think everybody would like to hear, and I would love to hear it again.
What book is that, Ashland?
It's called The Giving Tree. And do you think it would be okay if Taffy read it to you and me?
I would love that, Ashland. Let's ask Taffy if she'll do it now. Taffy, would you read it to us now?
Sure. Let's get comfortable and I'll have you on my lap over here and we'll read the story.
Oh, yay! Okay, here I come.
Let's look at this book and read this. It's a great book and it's about a tree and a little boy. The Giving Tree. And here we go, the first page. And this is a black and white. There's not too many colors in this at all. Once there was a tree, and she loved a little boy. His foot right here in the corner. And every day the boy would come. And he would gather her leaves and make them into crowns and play king of the forest. He would climb up her trunk, see his feet and hands on both sides. And he would swing from her branches. Whoop, there he is, there's his feet hanging from her branches. And eat apples. Oh, look at, he's eating the apples and throwing the cores down. He must be up there somewhere. And they would play hide and go seek. Oh, he's hiding. Oh, the tree found him. And when he was tired, he would sleep in her shade. There he is sleeping. Shh. And the boy loved the tree, always giving him a great big hug. Very much. Look at that. Me plus T means me and the tree. And the tree was very happy too. But time went by. Oh, look at that. The boy is no longer a little boy anymore. He's grown. And the boy grew older. Oh, looks like there's no longer just the boy, but there's 4 feet here, so it must be a friend that he has, or it could be a girlfriend, because it says me plus YL now. And the tree was often alone. Oh, that's sad. Then one day the boy came to the tree and said to the tree, or the tree actually said to the boy, "Come, boy, come and climb up my trunk and swing from my branches and eat apples and play in my shade and be happy." "I'm too big to climb and play," said the boy. "I want to buy things and have fun. I want some money. Can you give me some money?" "I'm sorry," said the tree, "but I have no money. I have only leaves and apples. Take my apples, boy, and sell them in the city. Then you will have money and you will be happy." Well, that was nice. The tree was sharing her apples. And so the boy climbed up the tree and gathered her apples and carried them away. And the tree was happy. Look at all those apples. But the boy stayed away for a long time, and the tree was sad. And then one day the boy came back, and the tree shook with joy. And she said, "Come, boy, climb up my trunk and swing from my branches and be happy." "I am too busy to climb trees," said the boy. "I want a house to keep me warm," he said. "I want a wife and I want children, and so I need a house. Can you give me a house?" "I have no house," said the tree. "The forest is my house. But you may cut off my branches and build a house. Then you will be happy." Look at that. Look at how old he is now. And so the boy cut off her branches and carried them away to build her house, or to build his house. Look at that, all those branches. And the tree was happy because she did something for the boy and it made her happy. But the boy stayed away for a long time. And when he came back, the tree was so happy she could hardly speak. "Oh, come, boy," she whispered. "Come and play." "I am too old and sad to play," said the boy. "I want a boat that will take me far away from here. Can you give me a boat?" "Cut down my trunk and make a boat," said the tree. "Then you will sail away and be happy." And so the boy cut down her trunk and made a boat and sailed away. And there's her boat going. And look at what's left, me plus the tree. And the tree was happy, but not really. Look at that, the tree is sad. And after a long time, the boy came back again. "I am sorry, boy," said the tree, "but I have nothing left to give you. My apples are gone, my teeth are too weak for apples," said the boy. "My branches are gone," said the tree. "You cannot swing on them. I am too old to swing on branches," said the boy. "My trunk is gone," said the tree. "You cannot climb." "I am too tired to climb," said the boy. "I am sorry," sighed the tree. "I wish that I could give you something, but I have nothing left. I am just an old stump. I am sorry." "Oh, I don't need very much now," said the boy. "Just a quiet place to sit and rest. I am very tired." "Well," said the tree, straightening up herself as much as she could. "Well, an old stump is good for sitting and resting. Come, boy, sit down and rest." And the boy did. Look at that. They're together again. And the tree was happy. Oh, the giving tree.
I'm trying something new today. I've got my questions on my phone. Good afternoon and welcome to Book Beat. Reading books is the key to an enlightened society. You want a key light back there, right?
I'm just gonna borrow this.
I think we're about ready, aren't we, Jesse? Good. Book Beat is a show about books and book readers.
A very odd combination of topics.
We interview book club members. How are your books chosen? And film their discussions.
Trying to find happiness and love in her life.
We also provide tips for forming book clubs
I think you just have to find a group of interested book readers.
and books that are current that might be enjoyable to read. In a society where everything is instantaneous, we're losing that sense of depth that reading can bring that other media doesn't. My name is Sue Ellen Zagrabelny.
Well, I can't guarantee Oprah, but I can guarantee Channel 20.
Look for Book Beat, Sundays at 5 p.m., repeated Monday at 1 a.m. and 9 a.m. on Channel 20. See you then. Thank you for joining us today on Book Beat. If your book club would like to be featured on Book Beat, please call or email the numbers on the screen. Thank you, and we will see you next time.